When we were growing up, like, our family, we were sort of genre-fluid household. We never really were respecters of like, oh, this is country, this is pop, this is rock. We just sort of listened to everything and loved everything.
We started producing our own tracks probably about
a
year and a half ago. We had a lot of influences, and then specifically on The Good Life, I feel like the more brutal and the more industrial sort of sounds really came through on this one. We were really trying to make sure that this song, it captured a lot of emotions that we were feeling very much in the moment. So we just did everything we could to make sure that from the synths to the distortions to the beats, everything we did kind of pushed everyone towards the feeling that we were trying to convey.
We got some good advice.
Yeah.
Rick Rubin is our executive producer. Because of our transition, it's taken a couple of years for us to really figure out where we wanted to be and for the future and what voice we wanted to speak with. Our tastes tend to evolve very quickly, and sometimes we'll pull from like more of our pop love, sometimes country, sometimes rock. And so we had recorded a lot of songs with other producers just to really figure out what voice we wanted to speak with next. And we're in a moment where we're a little bit confused creatively because we do like so much, but we knew that we needed to narrow down a feeling and a sound. And so Rick Rubin, we went out to see him at Shangri-La, and he listened to everything. And the best advice that he gave us, he focused in on one song. He was like, I think this is your magic, your spot. But he's like, but you got to figure out what the band Perry means, like in 2019. And he said, you know, bands have evolved over the years. You guys aren't necessarily playing drums and bass and electric like you were in the early days, but how are you finding your band voice with like the instruments and the tracks that you're building? Get everybody out of your ethos, hole up in a basement studio, and figure out what that is with the three of you. And so that's what we did. In country and in Nashville, there's a very specific way, you know, that they like to record. At least when we were recording there, we would basically go and write for 6 months, you know, and instead of like putting anything down on track in the moment that you were writing, we would just like get voice notes, have acoustic guitar, Neil mandolin, reed bass, and we sort of document the song on our iPhone, and then you would just like collect enough songs to go in and record, book 5 days in the studio.
Knock them all out.
Bring in like all the studio musicians, and then you would have like a producer who's almost like more of a conductor. And he would just bring these bands together around the songs, and then at the end of the week you have a whole album, mix, master.
Much more efficient than we do it.
Yeah, now it's so different because we'll be writing the song and building the track at the same time because at least in pop music and the way that we've been writing, they kind of inform each other. You know, you want the track to like perfectly have a musical bed for the lyric and melody to sit on, but then you also like, if the track is more aggressive and feels cool that way, you gotta amp up like the lyric a little bit to step up to the track.
We throw all ideas into the track from the beginning, and then it goes through this process of like putting all the ideas in there and then reducing, starting to pull out, and that's like one of the tougher parts of the process, I would say, is pulling out.
Yeah, it's like the
stuff.
last 48 hours of any track we do. It's a matter of just killing our darlings, so.
Simplifying,
Yeah.
We have a new song called The Good Life. It is one of the very first pieces that's like, this is starting to define a new sonic era for us in the band. It blends a little bit of everything. Like, I think from a songwriting perspective, it has what everybody have always known from the band with a
brutal
little bit
honesty.
of like, yeah, honesty is our through line. This one's probably a little bit more savagely honest than maybe some songs in the past, but we really like prided ourselves on this one with just putting out a really raw emotion and feeling into the melody and lyric. And then you focused on really putting raw emotion into the track.
It was interesting, you know, one thing that we've known for a while in the studio is that, you know, more is technically less. And so if you want something to get big, you just gotta find like 3 sounds. And so minimalism is a big thing for us in the studio. For us, especially, we use like a lot of 808s for our drums. We always like to start with like a smaller sound in the chorus here. So, you know, that is what our drum is for the chorus.
You got hats.
Yeah, and then hats we actually pull from Splice. So those are
Thank you, Splice.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout
Thank
out.
you, Splice.
A lot of what we'll do too is, since none of us are, we don't have a live kit in the studio, so if we want something that feels a little real or has air around it, we'll go to Splice.
But I love that these drums almost sound so tiny. because the chorus is so aggressive, and so
we use the Prophet a lot. So the that right there is
That
all
was one,
Prophet.
yeah. So like way more aggressive than the drum sounds.
Yeah, and so we use a lot of synths to project a lot of the aggression we go for, and that's kind of one thing that we've always never did in our past. Growing up as like an indie rock band, of course, electric guitars was our form of aggression,
Right.
and we still like that. Like we never were like a big drum band as well, but very much into like either electric guitars or now we've moved that into synths, and we use a lot of analog synths too, just because it feels like it's a nice like throwback to what we grew up doing.
And sort of like the influence for the production side for us is Yeezus. That record in particular is like a really big, eye-opening record for us.
Well, we talked to a lot of producers even that worked on that project. And then, of course, Rick, I think his first producer credit was as a reducer.
Yeah.
Like Neil says, was about like taking things away. And he always challenges us, and did on this track, actually. He was like, the chorus is sitting really perfectly, but we struggled with this thing with the verse because the way that we had it before this mix, it like felt like the verse was getting swamped by something, and he could like perfectly point out it's like the synthesizer that was too broad, so he's like bring it down, let the vocal speak, and then open it up on the chorus, you know?
He was like, embrace the space.
Yeah,
you know?
so just like tricks like that.
And that's one reason why we keep a limited toolkit. Like we really only use like 2 drum machines, about like 4 different synths, and we try and capture everything through those.
I remember when we were talking to No I.D, we were struggling with another track at that moment, and he pointed out like a couple of little adjustments that just made the whole thing land. So sometimes it feels like you're a mile away from where you need to be, and it's really just like right in front of you.